My name is Serena Caldwell, and at 35, I thought I finally had peace. A career I built from scratch, a home I bought with long nights and early mornings, a life no one had the power to interrupt, or so I believed. That illusion shattered the moment I turned onto my street in Houston, expecting nothing more than a quiet afternoon, and instead saw a bright orange moving truck backed up against my driveway. Not a neighbor's truck, not a delivery, a U-Haul, parked like it belonged there, blocking my garage, nose first against my house. I slowed my car, hands tightening on the wheel. No, 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 no. My garage door was wide open. My front door was propped open with a shoe, and voices, familiar voices, echoed through my home like they owned it. I pulled into the street and killed the engine. For a long moment, I sat in silence, listening to the faint thump of music coming from inside country music. Definitely not mine. My pulse throbbed in my throat. I got out slowly, every step feeling like it belonged to someone else. My hydrangeas, the ones I spent $600 on, were flattened under tire marks. My welcome mat was shoved sideways, and taped to my front door was a note written in someone's rushed handwriting. Serena, don't panic, we started early. Love, Mom. My vision blurred. Started what early? I stepped inside. The echo hit me first, the unnatural emptiness of a room being stripped bare, boxes stacked to my ceiling, my artwork missing from the walls, my living room, my sanctuary, in complete disarray. And then I saw him, Jalen. My older brother stood in my living room like a king surveying his new kingdom, one hand behind his head, the other resting on the back of my cream velvet sofa. His pregnant wife, Kendra, reclined comfortably on my accent chair, eating grapes out of my favorite ceramic bowl, my grandmother's bowl. Kendra, I said, voice low, if one grape falls in that bowl— Oh, hey, Rena, she interrupted, mid-chew. We didn't think you'd be home till 5. Jalen grinned. Surprise, sis, you're moving. I blinked slowly. I'm what? Before either of them could answer, a too bright, too familiar voice rang out. Serena, baby, you're early. I turned to see my mother, Dolores Caldwell, walking out of my master bedroom with a roll of bubble wrap and the confidence of someone who believed she was doing God's work. She was wearing one of my old aprons like she owned the place. Her eyes sparkled like she was thrilled to see me. She wasn't. She was thrilled to see the house. Mom, I said carefully, what is going on? Oh, sweetheart, she chirped, patting my arm like a toddler throwing a tantrum. We're helping you move. You said you were too busy to pack, so we took care of it. Aren't you grateful? My jaw locked. I never agreed to move. She laughed as if I was being adorable. Serena, honey, you're moving to that charming little apartment downtown. You know, the one close to nightlife and other single professionals. Her eyes flicked over me knowingly, perfect for someone your age. Someone my age, someone single, someone disposable. My stomach twisted. And why, I asked slowly, would I leave my 5-bedroom house? Jalen and Kendra exchanged a look. A smug one, Kendra placed a hand on her belly with theatrical delicacy. For the baby, of course, she said. A newborn needs space. You don't. I stared at them motionless, silent. My mother clapped her hands together like a cheerleader. We prayed on it, and the Lord told me real clear, this home is meant for family. She emphasized the word with a smile sharp enough to cut me open. But I am family, I said. She waved me off. You're grown, independent, blessed with a good job. Your brother needs this house to raise his child. It's selfish of you to hold on to it. Selfish, the word hit like a slap. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice to that condescending whisper she reserves for moments she wants to dominate. We already changed the locks, baby. The new keys are for Jalen and Kendra. Yours will open the apartment. She pressed a pink key fob into my palm. I dropped it on the floor. Her smile twitched. Jalen exhaled dramatically. Serena, don't do all this. You always get dramatic when things don't go your way. Things don't go my way. My breath stilled. These are my belongings, I said, my voice tight. In my house, that I paid for, with my name on the deed. My mother rolled her eyes. Technically, sweetie, that's what we need to discuss. Something in her voice turned cold, sharp, predatory. There it was. The real reason. Before I could speak, two men in U-Haul uniforms carried my glass dining table through the hallway, nearly dropping it. "Put that down," I snapped. They froze, looking between me and Dolores. "Ma'am," one whispered, "should we keep loading?" "Yes." My mother's voice cracked like a whip. "No," I said, stepping forward. "Put it down." They looked frightened. Dolores took 3 slow steps toward me. For the first time that day, the fake smile dropped her real face. The cold, calculating, "don't you dare cross me" face emerged. "You're making this difficult," she said softly. "I am your mother. Jalen is the man of this family now. We are following the order God set. This house belongs to the family, not to you." I felt the air go thin. "This house," she continued, "will serve its purpose." I swallowed. "And what purpose is that?" Her lips lifted into a triumphant smile. "To build their future, not yours." She snapped her fingers at the movers. "Keep packing." And that's when it happened. As the movers obeyed her, marching toward my office, one tripped over a slightly crushed cardboard box near the hall. A box with my name scrawled on the top, but handwriting that wasn't mine. When the box tilted, something inside made a heavy metallic clink. Something important, something hidden, something they weren't supposed to pack. I froze. My mother noticed my eyes on it. And her face, her entire face, changed just for a second. A flicker of panic, fear, then she masked it. But I had already seen it, whatever was in that box. My mother never intended me to see it, and for the first time since I walked into my own house, I felt something other than shock, something sharp, something dangerous, revenge. Because inside that box was the first clue that everything my mother told me about our family, about my grandmother, and about this house was a lie. That box, that one ordinary cardboard box, was the only thing in the room that didn't make sense, because Dolores Caldwell never panicked. Not when she got caught lying, not when she got caught stealing, and definitely not when she bulldozed over boundaries. But the second that box wobbled, her eyes flashed with something I had never seen before: fear. Real fear. "Don't touch that," she snapped. Too late. The mover had set it upright again, but her reaction burned into my mind like a brand. "What's in that box?" I asked. "Old junk," she said too quickly. "Leave it. We're donating it." That was the wrong answer, because Dolores doesn't donate anything unless she can write it off on her taxes and brag about it online. Before I could confront her, Jalen stepped between us like a second-rate bouncer. "Serena, we gotta talk to you about the deed." The deed. My whole body went still. "What about the deed?" I asked. Jalen scratched the back of his neck, trying to look innocent, but the smirk ruined it. "Mom told us something you should have known years ago. The deed, it wasn't supposed to be yours." "Jalen," I said, "if you take one more breath inside my house like you own it, I swear." A loud, sudden knock pounded at the front door. Everyone froze. The movers stepped aside. Kendra sat up straighter. Jalen's smug grin faded. Dolores' shoulders stiffened. And me? I recognized that knock police. Of course this was the direction today was going. I walked to the door and opened it. 2 officers stood on my porch, a younger white officer with a too-eager posture, and an older black officer with tired eyes that had seen too many long days. "Good afternoon," the older one said. "We received a disturbance call. Someone reported yelling." I almost laughed. "Officers," I said, stepping back to let them in. "I'm the homeowner. My name is Serena Caldwell." But before I could finish, my mother slid in front of me with the grace of a stage actor hitting her mark. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice trembling. I was so scared." I stared at her. Scared? She was orchestrating a home invasion. The younger officer frowned. "What's going on, ma'am?" Dolores pressed one hand dramatically to her chest. "My daughter, Serena, is having an episode. She's unstable. She's not thinking clearly. She's threatening everyone, including this pregnant girl." She gestured at Kendra, who instantly placed both hands on her belly as if she'd been cued. "Oh my God!" Kendra whimpered. I just want my baby to be safe. I felt my throat tighten. The lies were dropping like bombs. The officers turned to me. Ma'am, the younger one said, did you threaten anyone in this house? No, I said firmly. They are trespassing. They broke in. They're stealing my property. This is my home. Actually, Dolores cut in smoothly, we have an agreement, family arrangement. She just forgot. Forgot? Forgot my own property? My own mortgage? My own life? I stepped forward. Officer, look. But Jalen jumped in, voice trembling with fake hurt. We've been here helping our sister pack. She's moving. We've been here for days. Lies. All lies. The younger officer folded his arms. Ma'am, your family is saying they live here. They do not live here, I snapped. They used a key they weren't authorized to use. They hired movers to remove my... Ma'am, the older officer cut in gently. Do you have proof this is your house? Yes, I said. My deed is right. But Dolores interrupted again. She's confused, she said softly. It's her stress. She gets overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. My vision went red at the edges. The older officer sighed. Ma'am, with family disputes, our hands are tied. If they say they have permission to be here... They don't, I said. They are stealing. That is my furniture, my art, my appliances, my... Serena, my mother said with mock pity. Stop embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself. That did it. I walked to my office, grabbed my work tablet, pulled up the digital deed, and shoved it toward the older officer. Read it, I said. He did. He nodded slowly. This does have your name on it. But, the younger officer said quickly, your mom and brother are saying they've been living here, getting mail here, helping with bills. I whipped around. What bills? Dolores looked offended. Serena, don't act like we never helped you. Helped me? I barked out a laugh. Name one bill you ever paid. Silence. The younger officer gave another lazy shrug. Look, this is a civil issue. You want them out, you'll need to file a formal eviction. Eva! I choked. Eviction. They do not live here. Ma'am, he said, backing toward the door. Unless someone assaults someone, we can't do anything. Try working it out. Working it out? With people who'd already packed half my house into a truck? The officers left. Door shut. Silence. Then Jalen let out a long sigh, slow and smug. Well, he said, that settles that. No, it didn't. But they thought it did. Dolores walked up to me with a bright, poisonous smile. See, sweetheart, even the police know this house belongs to the family. She emphasized it again, family. I took a slow breath. She leaned in closer. Now be a good girl and go sort through your bathroom. Leave the heavy lifting to us. She handed me a roll of packing tape, a literal symbol of my displacement. I didn't take it. Dolores dropped it into my hand anyway. And that was when the U-Haul mover, the same one who tripped earlier, kicked the corner of that mysterious box again by accident. The same box Dolores didn't want touched. It shifted. A small corner of something metal poked out from beneath the cardboard flap. I saw it. She saw me see it. And in that fraction of a second, Dolores's face fell. Not into anger, not into annoyance, but into terror, pure, bone-deep terror. She lunged toward the box. Don't touch that! Her voice cracked sharp enough to make everyone freeze. Even Jalen, even Kendra, even the movers. I blinked. Because that wasn't just panic. It was guilt. Guilt with a history. Guilt with a paper trail. Guilt with consequences. Mom, I said quietly, what's in that box? She grabbed it, hugging it against her body like a shield. Nothing, she hissed. Just old records. Nothing you need to worry about. Old records. Records she didn't want me to see. Records she was desperate enough to hide while bulldozing my life. I stepped toward her. She stepped back. You need to let that go, she snapped. No, I said, voice now steady. I don't think I will. Kendra stood from the chair, holding her belly and narrowing her eyes. Serena, she said softly, don't make this complicated. Something broke inside me then, not my heart, My patience, because now I knew two things with absolute clarity. That box was never meant to be touched. Whatever was inside it was the key to everything my mother had lied about for decades, and I was about to open it, even if I had to tear my entire house apart to do it. I didn't open the box right away, not because I was scared of what was inside, but because the way my mother clutched it, like it was her last heartbeat, told me one thing. Whatever was in there wasn't just paperwork, it was power. Power she never expected me to get my hands on. The movers were still frozen. Jalen was staring at me like I'd suddenly turned into a threat, and Kendra was gripping her belly like her unborn child could feel the tension. Dolores pressed the box to her chest, backing up toward my bedroom like she could smuggle it out piece by piece. I followed her. Slow, deliberate, silent. "Serena," she said sharply, "don't go down this road." "Down what road?" I asked. "The truth?" Her nostrils flared. "You always want to start fights when we are trying to bless you." "Bless me," I laughed. "You broke into my house." "It's not breaking in," she snapped, "if the house belongs to the family." There it was again. That word. Family. A shield she used to control, manipulate, rewrite reality. She tried to walk past me, but I blocked the hallway. "Give me the box." "No." "Mom, no, you don't need to see this." Her voice cracked before she caught herself. Cracked. That alone told me everything. Dolores Caldwell did not crack, not in public, not in private, not in front of her children. But she was cracking now. I stepped forward. "Give me the box." She looked to Jalen for backup. He folded his arms. "Ma, just give it to her. Let her see it so she stops acting crazy." Her face twisted. "Don't you call your sister crazy," she snapped, suddenly protective of me in the wrong direction. Oh, now she wanted to protect me. Convenient. Then Kendra stepped forward, resting her hands on her belly, her tone sweet as warm honey hiding poison. "Dolores, maybe it's fine. Let her open it. She'll see whatever it is and get over it." Dolores's jaw tightened. "No, you don't understand." A long silence fell. She was trapped. She knew it. I knew it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If you open this, everything changes, Serena." I held her eyes. Good. Her face crumpled into something I'd never seen: fear, and then anger, white-hot, trembling anger. She shoved the box at me, hitting my shoulder so hard it stung. "Fine," she shouted. "You want your grandmother's lies? Take them." Grandmother's lies. Those two words struck like lightning. I grabbed the box and stormed into the dining room, where there was light. Everyone followed, even the movers, suddenly too afraid to leave. I set it on the table. My hands were shaking, not from fear. From rage, Dolores hovered behind me, whispering frantic prayers under her breath. "Lord, don't let her misinterpret. Don't let her misunderstand. Don't let Satan twist this." I reached into the box. The first thing I pulled out was a leather folder. Old, cracked, marked with my grandmother's initials. E.C. Miss Eunice Caldwell. The woman who practically raised me. The woman who taught me that strength is a quiet weapon. The woman my mother always insisted didn't have anything. But the folder felt heavy, important, dangerous. I opened it. The first document made my heart stop. It was a bank statement. From 20 years ago, the account belonged to Eunice Caldwell, but under the withdrawals section was my mother's handwriting. Not her signature, that was forged, but her notes, her calculations, her memos, thousands of dollars, moved into an account with Jalen's name on it, money that wasn't theirs, money that wasn't ever supposed to be touched. Kendra gasped. "Dolores, what is this?" "Stop reading that," my mother snapped, but it was too late. I reached into the box again, another envelope. This one labeled Serena, Trust Fund. My breath caught. I opened it slowly. Inside were deposit slips, checks, a guardianship agreement, and a final letter from my grandmother addressed to my sweet granddaughter Serena. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. I read it silently, but the words exploded in my chest. "If you are reading this, it means Dolores has chosen pride over protection again. Do not let her take what is yours. This home, this money, your future. I left them for you. My throat closed, I kept reading. Your mother loves Jalen more than she loves Truth. She will justify anything to support him, even stealing from you. I froze. Stealing. Not exaggeration, not implication. Her words, her handwriting, her truth. I read the last lines. You are the only one strong enough to stand up to her. Do not let her erase you. I swallowed hard. The room was silent. Then my mother burst forward and tried to snatch the letter from my hands. You weren't supposed to see that. I stepped back. No, I said, my voice dropping low and deadly. I was supposed to see this 20 years ago. Serena, please. You stole my trust fund? I demanded. Dolores shook her head violently. No, I borrowed it. You forged Grandma's signature. I had to, she screamed. Jalen needed help. He had that business opportunity. The one that failed? I shot back. The one you blamed me for not supporting? You used my money and lied to both of us about it? My mother suddenly looked small, fragile, like her lies were folding in around her. Jalen's eyes were wide. You took Serena's money? He whispered. Don't you dare judge me. Dolores snapped at him. Everything I did was to protect this family. By stealing from me, I said. She burst into tears, manipulative tears, weaponized tears. Tears she used like currency. I did what I had to do. Your grandmother wanted you to be the successful one. She gave you everything. It wasn't fair. Ah, and there it was. The truth behind everything. Jealousy, envy, favoritism that lived like rot inside her spine. You wanted to punish me, I said. You wanted to teach me a lesson. She didn't deny it, that was enough, but the box still had more, and I wasn't done. I reached deeper. The bottom held one last envelope, sealed, heavier than the rest. On it was written, for the courts. Dolores lunged toward me again. Serena, please. But something new happened, something that shifted the entire energy of the room. Jalen, the golden child, the spoiled one, the one she always protected, stepped in front of her and said, Mom, let her open it. Dolores froze. Her mouth opened, no words came out, because she realized something important. For the first time in his entire life, Jalen wasn't choosing her. He was choosing me. I broke the seal. Inside was a legal document, a very old, very official one, signed by Eunice, stamped by a lawyer, filed in the county clerk's office. It read, Transfer of property ownership. I, Eunice Caldwell, leave my house at 942 Wellington Street exclusively to my granddaughter, Serena Caldwell. My house always mine, never theirs. My mother's knees buckled. She grabbed a chair to keep from collapsing. Her voice cracked into a broken whisper. Serena, please, don't use that against me. I looked up slowly, and I smiled. Mom? I said softly. Yes, she whispered, eyes hopeful. I folded the document, placed it back into the envelope, and met her gaze with a calm she'd never seen from me before. I'm not going to use this against you. She exhaled in relief, until I added, I'm going to use all of it. Her face drained of color, completely. Because the next thing I found in that box was something that could destroy my mother's entire reputation, and possibly her freedom. And I wasn't done digging yet. The room felt too small for everything that had just come to light. My trust fund, my inheritance, my grandmother's last warnings, the deed, the forged signatures, the lies. But the one thing that made Dolores look like she was staring down the barrel of a gun was still inside that box. I could feel it before I even reached for it. The weight shifted differently, heavier, metallic, dangerous. Jalen whispered behind me, What else is in there? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted my mother to hear her own heartbeat when she saw what I pulled out. I lifted the last item, a locked metal envelope. Rusty, cold, with a bold red stamp on the front. Private, open only in case of dispute. My breath stilled. A dispute, a family dispute. This was exactly the moment my grandmother had prepared for. Dolores took one shaky step forward. Serena, honey, some things don't need to be opened. I think this needs to be opened more than anything, I said. Kendra backed up, holding her stomach. Even she could feel the shift. Jalen cleared his throat nervously. Ma? What's in that? Dolores swallowed so hard I saw her throat shake. Her voice came out in a whisper meant for only me. But everyone heard it. If you open that, you will hate me forever. I stared at her. Maybe you should have thought about that before you stole from me. Her face twisted. But I'm your mother. And she was my grandmother, I snapped. Let's see who she trusted more. I broke the seal. Inside were two things: a series of notarized letters from my grandmother, a USB drive taped to the back of the folder. My heartbeat hammered in my ears. This is insane, Jalen muttered. Ma, what did you do? Dolores looked like she could throw up. Serena, just read it later. Please, don't do this. But she didn't get to finish because the top letter, dated 12 years ago, was addressed not to me, but to the Honorable Judge Patrice Eldridge. I read the opening line aloud. Judge Eldridge, if my daughter Dolores ever attempts to claim ownership of my estate, please refer to the enclosed evidence. Dolores staggered. No, Eunice, why would you? But I kept reading. My grandmother's handwriting was unmistakable, elegant, confident, final. My daughter has a past she has hidden from her own children. Her pattern of manipulation will only hurt Serena. If you are reading this, please advise my granddaughter on next legal steps. I froze. Hidden from her children? My eyes shot up to my mother. What did you hide from us? Dolores shook her head violently. It's nothing. Your grandmother was dramatic. I flipped to the next page, then the next. Each letter got worse. My grandmother had documented dates, times, transactions, conversations, witnesses, and then the bombshell. A letter labeled Incident Report 1989. Wait, 1989? I murmured. That's before I was born. At that moment, Dolores lunged for the envelope, grabbing at it with trembling hands. I said stop. Jalen jumped between us again, but this time not to protect her, to restrain her. Ma, sit down, he yelled, pushing her gently onto a chair. She fought him, but Jalen was stronger. Kendra covered her mouth. A single tear fell. What did she do? I opened the letter. It was a notarized affidavit written by Eunice, with a witness statement attached. My eyes raced across the lines. I felt the world tilt. I felt my hands go numb. I felt the floor disappear from beneath me. I read the line twice because I didn't believe it the first time. Dolores Caldwell was involved in a financial extraction scheme targeting seniors during her employment at the Mount Hope Care Center. My breath vanished. A scheme, a scam, my mother, the woman who called herself a church leader, a prayer warrior, a protector of the weak, a scammer. The next lines twisted the knife. She forged signatures, intercepted mail, and rerouted payments. When she was caught, I helped her avoid jail time by taking the blame for missing paperwork. I stared at the page, no sound came out. Dolores began to sob. Real sobs, deep, ugly sobs that ripped out of her like she was being torn apart. Mom, Jalen whispered, voice shaking, is this true? Dolores covered her face, screaming into her palms. Your grandmother lied. But even she didn't sound convinced. I flipped to the witness form signed by a former coworker of hers. I flipped to another document. Bank statements, transfers, her old employment termination letter. Everything was true. My grandmother hadn't lied. She had protected her from jail, protected her from consequences, protected her reputation, and in return, Dolores tried to steal the house from the only person Eunice trusted me. My hands shook. You let Grandma take the fall for you, I whispered. She sobbed harder. You stole from residents in a nursing home. She shook her head desperately. It wasn't, I only took from people who didn't have. She stopped, realizing what she was about to say. People who didn't have family, people who wouldn't be missed, people the world forgot. Kendra backed away from her. Oh my God. You were a thief, I said. My voice was no longer loud. It was soft, controlled, cold. And when Grandma died, you repaid her by stealing from me. Dolores's sobbing turned into hysteria. I was young, I was desperate, I made mistakes, don't punish me for my past. You tried to throw me out of my own house today. She froze, and I saw it. The moment she realized her past wasn't her biggest mistake. What she did to me was. Because that past was enough to put her behind bars today. My grandmother preserved the evidence, documented the crime, built an entire case file, and trusted me with it. I looked at my mother and said the words she had always used against me. Actions have consequences. The room was dead quiet. Even the movers stood frozen, unsure whether they should run or call someone. I placed the letters neatly on the table. Then I lifted the USB drive. It felt like justice in my palm. "Do you know what's on this?" I asked. Dolores's lip trembled. Her eyes were bloodshot. She whispered, "No." "Please. Serena, please don't." But it was already too late. Whether she begged, prayed, bargained, or screamed, what was done, and I was done being the quiet daughter, done being the forgiving one, done being the responsible one, done being the family's punching bag. I had leverage now, proof, receipts, documentation, a paper trail, a digital trail. Every lie she built her life on, I could burn it down, and I planned to. "Mom," I said. She looked up at me with hollow eyes. "I'm going to expose everything." Her mouth fell open. "Everything?" she whispered, like she couldn't believe it. "Yes," I said. "Every stolen dollar, every forged signature, every lie, every secret." She collapsed forward, sobbing into her hands. The woman who once called herself the backbone of the Caldwell family was finally breaking, and I hadn't even started. Because the next place I took that USB drive wasn't the police. It was somewhere even more powerful, somewhere my mother never imagined I would go. And when I walked through that door, I realized the real revenge had only just begun. I didn't confront my mother any further. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't even tell her what I planned next. Because when someone has spent their entire life manipulating you, the worst punishment isn't yelling back. It's silence cold, calculating silence. I placed the USB drive in my pocket, slid the envelope of evidence into my bag, and walked right past all of them without another word. "Serena!" Jalen called after me. "Where are you going? We need to talk." But I didn't stop. "Serena, wait!" Kendra shouted. Still, I didn't turn around. My mother's voice broke like glass. "Baby, please, don't do this to me." I kept walking. Her cries hit the walls, bounced across my living room, and followed me to the front door. But the difference now? They held no power over me. Not anymore. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, and for the first time that day, I could breathe. The Texas sun hit my skin like fire, but it felt nothing compared to the heat inside me. I walked down my driveway, past the crushed hydrangeas, past the moving truck, past everything they tried to take from me. When I reached my car, I didn't get in. I leaned against the hood and inhaled slowly. This wasn't a police matter, not yet. What Dolores did wasn't just emotional cruelty or manipulation. It wasn't even just theft. It was a whole financial crimes timeline, stretching back decades. Forgery, fraud, misappropriation of funds, illegal transfers, abuse at a nursing home. Police wouldn't touch it. Not at first. But you know who would? People who cared about money, people who cared about tax fraud, people who cared about falsified signatures, people who cared about unreported income, people who had the time, resources, and appetite to tear someone like Dolores apart. So I drove, not to the police station, not to a lawyer's office, not to the courthouse, but to a quiet federal building on Westheimer Road with tinted windows and no signage except a discreet number on the glass. It read, 2045B Department of Treasury, Field Office. I walked inside. The AC blasted cold. The silence was clinical. The air smelled like paper and authority. A receptionist looked up. "Good afternoon. Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. She opened her mouth to explain how these things work, but I placed my ID and envelope of documents on the counter. "I need to speak with someone about a possible financial exploitation case involving federal retirement accounts, forged medical signatures, and possible tax evasion dating back over 20 years. She froze. Her eyes lifted to mine. Then she picked up the phone and dialed an extension so fast her fingers blurred. "Yes, sir," she whispered into the phone. "I think you need to come up front." Within 2 minutes, a man in a dark blue tie appeared. Tall, professional, expression serious. "Ms. Caldwell," he said, glancing at my ID, "please follow me." He led me down a hallway into a private interview room. Neutral walls, one table, 4 chairs, a glass of water waiting. He closed the door gently. "I'm Agent Lewis," he said. "What exactly are you reporting?" I placed the envelope on the table between us. "My mother," I said, "and her crimes." He raised a brow. "Go on." So I told him everything, not the emotional details, the practical ones: dates, transfers, forged documents, witness statements, the nursing home scheme, my trust fund, my grandmother's deathbed warnings. I showed him the USB drive. He inserted it into his laptop, and as the files opened, his expression shifted from polite interest to surprise to deep, professional concern. He clicked through document after document: financial statements, screenshots, photos, medical records, bank reports, a scanned ledger from the nursing home. He leaned back after 10 minutes. "Ms. Caldwell, where did you get all this?" "My grandmother," I said. "She documented everything. She said this day would come." He exhaled slowly. "This is significant." Significant. That word had weight. Not emotional weight, legal weight. He tapped the folder. "Your mother could be liable for restitution felony charges, fraud, forgery, possibly elder exploitation, possibly misappropriation of federal health funds. And if these transfers were unreported?" He paused. "That could constitute tax fraud as well." I felt no joy, only justice. "What happens now?" I asked. He pressed his palms together. "First, we open a preliminary review. If these documents check out, and they look very real, we will issue subpoenas and begin an official investigation." I nodded. "And," he added, "because your grandmother's affidavit names a judge, we will be cross-referencing this with the county court records." "Good. Ms. Caldwell, are you prepared for repercussions?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "Yes." I walked out 45 minutes later feeling lighter, not because the fight was over, but because for the first time in my life, someone believed me over my mother. Someone took my side. Someone treated me like the victim, not the villain. When I reached my car, I saw my reflection in the window. Not broken, not scared, not small, but dangerous, empowered, awake. I got in and stared at my steering wheel. I knew what I had to do next. Someone else needed to see this evidence. Someone who had stood in front of a congregation and publicly humiliated me 3 days ago. Someone who believed Dolores's version of events over mine. Someone who cried holy tears while preaching lies. Pastor Ronald Burke. St. Matthew's Baptist stood tall against the Houston skyline, golden cross glinting in the sun, a place where I had tithed, volunteered, served, supported, a place that abandoned me. I marched inside. Choir practice was underway. Women in burgundy robes turned and stared. "Serena," one whispered. "Is everything all right?" I didn't answer. I walked straight toward the pastor's office, knocked once, then opened the door. Pastor Burke looked up from his desk, startled. "Serena, you can't just—" I placed the envelope on his desk, hard. "Read." "I beg your pardon." "Read every page." He looked annoyed, but the annoyance vanished when he saw the first document. His eyes widened, his Adam's apple bobbed, his lips parted. "Dear Lord." "Yes," I said, "that's what you should say." He flipped through page after page, hand shaking, face paling. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair like the truth had knocked the wind out of him. "Serena, No," I said. "Don't apologize. Not yet." He swallowed. "What do you want from me?" I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. "I want you to call an emergency church board meeting." His eyebrows shot up. "And then," I said, "you are going to tell them exactly what Dolores Caldwell has been hiding." His face twisted. "Serena, this will ruin her. You know that, right?" I stared him directly in the eyes. "I'm counting on it." A long silence stretched between us. Then he exhaled slowly. "Very well," he said. I'll make the call. I stood, gathered my things, and headed for the door. And Pastor? I said, pausing in the doorway. Yes? You might want to pray tonight, because what's coming for Dolores won't be gentle. Because while the pastor made that call, I was already headed home, and I had no idea that the sheriff's department was headed there too, with a warrant. By the time I reached my street again, Houston's sky had turned the color of bruised lavender. Beautiful, but heavy, as if even the clouds knew a storm was coming. My house was still there, my hydrangeas still crushed, the moving truck still idling with its engine rumbling like a wild animal pacing in a cage, but something was different. 2 sheriff's department SUVs were parked at the curb. Lights off, engines silent, but the threat, the authority, the presence? Loud enough to shake the street, I parked behind one of the SUVs, heart thudding with a strange mixture of dread and justice. I wasn't afraid of them. I was afraid of what was about to come tumbling out of my front door. I stepped out of my car just as 2 uniformed deputies walked up my driveway. One knocked. Firm, professional. The door opened, and my mother's voice floated through the air like a broken violin. Yes, can I help you? The deputy's voice was calm but cold. Mrs. Dolores Caldwell, we need to speak with you regarding a complaint filed earlier today. I didn't move. I stayed at the end of the driveway, leaning against my car as if I were merely observing a show, because that's exactly what this was, the opening act of my mother's downfall. Dolores stepped outside, smiling too wide, the way she always smiled at law enforcement, like she believed her church hat made her morally superior. Oh my goodness, officers, is this about the disturbance earlier? We already sorted that out. It was just a family misunderstanding. My daughter gets emotional sometimes. The deputy cut her off. No, ma'am, this isn't about that. I saw the smile freeze, then fall, slowly like a mask slipping. It's not, she whispered. No, this is regarding a report made this afternoon about potential financial misconduct and exploitation involving a deceased senior under your care many years ago. Her knees gave out for a second. She caught herself on the doorframe. I, I don't understand. Behind her, Kendra stepped into view, holding her belly, face pale. Jalen appeared next, eyebrows knit with confusion. The deputy continued. We're here to serve you with a notice of inquiry. You are required to provide documentation relating to your employment at Mount Hope Care Center between the years 1987 and 1990. My mother blinked rapidly. That was decades ago. Yes, ma'am, the deputy said. The complaint alleges forged signatures and misappropriation of resident funds. Her face crumpled. No. Who would bring something like that up after all this time? The deputy turned his head and looked straight at me. My mother followed his gaze. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in my entire life, she realized I was no longer her child. I was her reckoning. You, she whispered, voice cracking. Serena, baby, what did you do? I pushed off the car and took a slow step toward her. I did what Grandma asked me to do. Her hands shook. Dolores Caldwell? The deputy said, pulling her attention back. This notice requires a response within 10 business days. Failure to comply may escalate the investigation. My mother's bottom lip trembled so violently she could barely speak. I need a lawyer. Ma'am, that would be advisable. He handed her the envelope. It looked heavy enough to break her fingers. And then, the second deputy cleared his throat. Is Jalen Caldwell present? My brother straightened instantly. Yes, sir. The deputy approached him. We need to speak with you as well. Jalen's eyes went wide. Me? For what? The deputy pulled out a document. A subpoena for records relating to Caldwell Creative, LLC. Jalen's breath came out in a small, shocked puff. That company hasn't been active in years. That's exactly why we need to review the transfers. His eyes darted to our mother. Ma, what transfers? Dolores squeezed her eyes shut. Her voice was barely a whisper. Your startup, back then, it wasn't funded by a loan. Jalen's eyebrows furrowed. What? She sobbed. I used the money from the residents. I thought it would work out. My brother stumbled backward like she'd punched him. You used stolen money to fund my business? You let me think I failed on my own? She cried harder. I was protecting you. No, you were protecting your favorite, I said quietly. He looked at me, eyes glassy. Serena, I didn't know, I swear. The deputy folded the paper. You will need to provide any remaining financial records if you're found complicit. I wasn't complicit, he said quickly. I didn't know. The deputy gave a non-committal nod. We'll determine that once we see the documents. Jalen sank into the couch. Kendra stepped toward him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Her voice was soft. Baby, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. But there was something in her eyes, a flicker, a calculation. Something told me she was realizing that the golden life she'd envisioned, the house, the stability, the generational wealth Dolores promised her, was slipping like sand between her fingers. One of the deputies turned back to my mother. Ma'am, do you have current access to the property here? My mother sniffled. Yes, it's our family home. I stepped forward. That's incorrect. The property is legally mine. I have the deed and the will and the transfer documents. Dolores choked out a sob. Serena, please. The deputy held up a hand. Is this true, ma'am? Does your daughter own the home? Dolores collapsed onto the porch railing. She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it. Not this time, not with the truth staring her in the face. The deputy nodded. Then you cannot change locks, enter the home without permission, or remove property. Jalen looked up sharply. But wait, we thought... I don't care what you thought, the deputy said. You are not legal occupants. If you have belongings here, you may retrieve them with the homeowner's consent. All eyes turned to me. My mother's voice cracked. Serena, please, don't throw us out. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the woman who raised me, the woman who braided my hair on Sunday mornings, the woman who taught me to tie my shoes, the woman who promised to protect me. But then I remembered she wasn't trying to move in. She was trying to take everything from me. I'm not throwing you out, I said calmly. Her eyes brightened with hope. Thank you, baby. I cut her off. You can come back tomorrow between 10 and 12, supervised, to pick up your things. She froze. No. No, Aunt Serena, please don't do this. I didn't do this, I said softly. You did. The deputy nodded. That's reasonable. We'll return if needed. They turned to leave. My mother collapsed onto the porch, sobbing so loudly neighbors peeked through curtains. Jalen punched a wall. Kendra held her belly like she was bracing for impact. And me. I stood on my lawn, watching the sheriff's cars pull away, knowing this was only phase 1. When the last cruiser disappeared, I walked back into my house. Everything was still a mess, boxes everywhere, furniture out of place, my life turned upside down, but it didn't matter. Because power? Power was settling back into my bones. I walked through the house silently, calmly, deliberately, and as I passed through the hallway, I noticed something odd. A light on in my grandmother's old room, the one I kept as a guest room. It was dim, warm, inviting. I stepped inside. There on the nightstand was something I hadn't seen before, a small folded piece of paper with my name on it. Serena. My breath caught. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was my grandmother's handwriting. My voice cracked as I whispered the first line. Baby, if you found this, then Dolores finally tried to take what was never hers. A chill shot down my spine. I kept reading. There is something else you need to know. Something I couldn't put in the official documents. My pulse hammered. It concerns the real reason your mother hates you and why she tried to take your home. I sank onto the edge of the bed, heart pounding. The final line burned into my brain. It started the year you were born. The letter trembled in my hands. My grandmother's handwriting, elegant loops, steady strokes, felt like she was sitting beside me again, whispering the truth she never got to say out loud. My heart hammered as I read the next line. Serena, your mother does not hate you. She envies you. I blinked. Envy? For what? I kept reading. When she found out she was pregnant with Jalen, she believed it would heal her. But when she became pregnant with you, she learned a truth she could never forgive. The room blurred for a moment. A truth she could never forgive? My breath caught as the next sentence revealed it. Your father confided in me that you were not conceived from love, but from an affair Dolores never recovered from. My blood went cold. I read the line again, slower. Your father was unfaithful. Your mother blamed you for it, not him. I swallowed hard, my entire world tilting an affair. Anger misdirected, pain passed down. Everything began clicking into place. Her resentment, her favoritism toward Jalen, her judgment, her cruelty, her bitterness when I succeeded. She saw your existence as a punishment, not a blessing. But Grandma wasn't done. Your mother believed God was punishing her by giving you more talent, more patience, and more favor. My throat tightened. She thought if she gave everything to Jalen, she could undo the humiliation she felt. But she only taught him dependency, and she taught you silence. A tear slipped down my cheek, not because of sadness, but recognition. Recognition of the truth I'd lived without understanding. I turned the page to the final lines. Baby, this is the last thing I will ever tell you. You were meant for more than this family's pain. Take back what is yours, and never dim your light to make them comfortable. I exhaled shakily, then folded the letter, pressed it to my chest, and closed my eyes. I felt my spirit shift. I felt the little girl inside me, the one who always said, "Yes, Mama," the one who believed that being good meant being quiet, rise up and finally breathe. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was awakening. Morning came softly. Golden light filtered into my room, gentle and warm, as if the universe itself was giving me permission to start over. I showered, dressed in clean clothes, tied my hair back, put on lipstick, looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't see damage. I saw a woman finally stepping into her power. At 9:55 a.m., I heard a car door slam outside. Then another, then another. I checked the time. 10 a.m., right on schedule. I walked to my front door and opened it before they could knock. My mother stood on the porch, eyes swollen from crying, wearing an outfit she probably thought made her look pitiful enough to win sympathy. Jalen stood stiffly beside her, jaw clenched. Kendra hovered behind him, rubbing her belly nervously. A deputy stood a few feet away, watching Serena. My mother whispered, We just want to get our things." "Then do it," I said coolly. "You have 2 hours." She flinched at my tone, not loud, not cruel, just final. They stepped inside, slowly, like crossing a threshold into their own consequences. Watching them gather their belongings was surreal. Jalen avoided my eyes entirely. He packed silently, shoulders slumped, his confidence shattered by the truth of where his success came from. Kendra moved gently, guilt hovering around her like fog. But my mother? My mother moved like she was walking through a graveyard, because in a way she was the graveyard of the lies she'd buried. She approached me once, just once. "Serena," she whispered, voice trembling, "I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your mother." I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who created me, and then spent decades punishing me for being born. "I know," I said quietly, "and I'm not taking that away." Her eyes softened with hope. "But," I said, voice steady, "being my mother doesn't make you my home." The hope collapsed. She began to cry, real tears, not manipulative, not dramatic, not weaponized, just broken. "I did love you," she said through shaking breaths. "I just didn't know how." I swallowed hard. "I know, but your love shouldn't cost me my peace." She covered her face, and I let her cry, because forgiveness doesn't mean reunion, and closure doesn't require permission. When the time ran out, the deputy stepped inside. "That's it," he said gently. "You'll need to leave now." Dolores wiped her eyes. "Serena, baby, please don't do this. Please don't end our family." "I didn't end our family," I said. "I just stopped sacrificing myself to fix it." They walked out one by one, my brother, Kendra, and finally my mother. She paused at the doorway. "Serena, was there any chance we can fix this later?" I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said. Her eyes brightened. "In therapy." Her smile crumbled. The deputy guided her down the steps. I closed the door slowly, softly like sealing a chapter. I locked it, then leaned my forehead against the wood and let myself feel everything: the pain, the relief, the grief, the liberation. Life didn't snap back into place instantly, it never does. But piece by piece, it shifted. The investigation moved forward. More evidence surfaced. Witnesses contacted them. Grandma's documents aligned perfectly with records. Justice was unfolding. Pastor Burke held that emergency meeting. Dolores was removed from her ministry positions. The truth spread, not gossip, but clarity. The pause my client placed on my project lifted. They apologized. They even promoted me, because truth has a way of restoring what lies try to ruin. 6 months later, I sat on my back porch overlooking the garden I'd replanted, new hydrangeas blooming beautifully. A soft breeze moved through my hair. My phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "Serena, it's Jalen. Counseling is hard, but I'm trying. Thank you for pushing us to face the truth." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Trying is a start." I put my phone down, sipped my tea, closed my eyes. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't the girl begging to be seen. I was the woman my grandmother always knew I could be. A woman who reclaimed what was hers. A woman who refused to be erased. A woman who didn't let pain become destiny. I whispered into the breeze, "Thank you, Grandma." And I swear the wind answered. Later that night, as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I glanced at a framed photo of my grandmother on the hallway table, her smile warm, her eyes knowing. I touched the frame lightly. "They tried to bury me," I whispered, "but they forgot." I smiled. I was the seed. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your peace? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if Serena's journey resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. There are so many more stories about strength, truth, and standing up to the people who swore they loved you, and you don't want to miss them.